So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Luke Gilbert, who's director at Rosedale and Jones. So, firstly, Luke, thanks for spending some time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, Rosedale and Jones, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
No problem, Chris. Yeah, it's nice to be invited on. So Rosedale and Jones, we formed it back in 2015. Change of career for me at the time. Never really saw myself going into the industry, to be honest. I didn't have an high opinion of it before coming into the industry, but saw an opportunity where I felt that someone could come in and make a better job of it, do something that was more personal for the buyers and sellers that were out there, put them a bit more central in the decisions they were making and how they were going about things. The industry's got a shocking reputation, even to this day, it still does. So I kind of went with the view that, look, if we just do a really good job and make sure by the end of that transaction, that person that's moving home feels that you've looked after their best interests and that you're
Great,
almost like a trusted advisor rather than it just being a transactional thing. You
great.
get repeat business and referrals and build from there. And that's what we've looked to do over the past 10 plus years, really.
Brilliant, brilliant, and well done for it in 10 years. I don't know if you know the business survival stats. Unfortunately, they're not great. So,
Yeah.
80% of businesses failed in the first 5 years of operation, and of the 20% that survive, 80% of those fail in the following five. So, getting to 10 is a big milestone. I hope you celebrated that well.
Um,
Yeah,
I'm not sure
brilliant.
if we did actually, to be honest with
Well,
you.
d do you know what the challenge with entrepreneurial people is? We don't celebrate enough.
No.
And for me it's really important we get our clients to celebrate because for me it builds resilience.
Mm.
So in those dark days, and I guess we all have them, why am I doing this? We've got an answer, because if you don't have an answer, it's like that's the
I
problem.
agree with you. I think that motivation's massive because, I mean, funnily enough, there's a lovely little story people tell me anyway about the logo and the name of the brand and stuff. Like when I started going away from an established sort of quite well paid job at the time to nothing, I knew there were going to be those dark days. And the original logo and stuff, looking back, I mean, it was shocking. It was, but the thought behind it was a little house and it had a green tree with little red berries on the tree and it was effectively it was my home where my wife
Right.
and my family and stuff are, and it was always just meant to be those days where you were really struggling. I'd see that and it'd remind me why I'm doing it and just to sort of dig
Lovely.
your heels in and crack on rather than just put your head in the sand and pretend stuff's not happening, if that makes sense. So
Makes perfect
yeah,
sense.
it
Brilliant.
needs something.
No, it's so important. I think celebration and gratitude are two key things that build resilience on a regular basis. So it's important we do when we can. So maybe look, if we look back to start with, and obviously you mentioned you're not from, you had a change of industry. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got into business, and why this particular one for you.
I think it was timing's massive, I would say, over the years. Like we've got self-employed property consultants that work for us, and I know just through them over the years, it's timing's a big thing. Um, I, I was working on power lines at the time. I was about 8 years into that career, so I travelled up and down the country, sort of building and maintaining the national grid with the company I was with.
Oh, right.
Just expected to go on in that, just continue building that career there, really. And it just, as it fell, I kind of had a feeling that I wasn't sure I'd want to do it once we had kids and stuff because you're working away a lot, like you're on maybe 1.5 days a week. Not great if you've got kids, and the divorce rate in the industry was high.
Right.
Uh, but I wasn't seriously thinking of leaving or anything like that. It was just in my mind. And there was one particular day we were at work, and there'd been a few incidents and certain things. It was getting a bit risky with what we were doing out on site. There was an accident. I don't still to this day, I wouldn't say it was necessarily anybody's fault. Whether the digger driver was just having a cig in his cab and he burnt himself and knocked it. The digger dropped on me, broke my ankle,
Oh, my God.
and uh, there was a bit of a culture thing. Some of the lads had been smoking something that they shouldn't have done and were scared of drugs tests. And They tried to hide everything and basically tried to throw me under the bus, like literally made me drive with a broken ankle from the A63 back home about 22 mile. So there
Oh my
wasn't,
goodness.
yeah, like really bad. And I think as it all came to a close, it just made me realize I don't want to be in a situation where someone is in control of me and my
Yes.
income when there's nothing that I've really done wrong. And it just kind of opened my eyes. And it was like, if you're ever going to do it, now's the time.
Brilliant.
Um, we had a similar thing with a franchise that we're in. I had a lot of good years there and stuff, but we had a similar end there. I think it just that realization that again I'd allowed someone to put me in a position where they could do things to harm me and my business without us really having too
Yes.
much to say about it. So it's why we're completely independent now.
Brilliant. Brilliant. What fascinating. I mean, obviously that's not the happiest of circumstances, but and so 10 years
Always.
in, yeah, no, it's dealing with situations, isn't it? And making, and as you said, taking control and making your own choices, which is again is quite it's quite an entrepreneurial feature, I think, of people just
Mhm.
deciding we want control of our own destiny, and many people don't. You know, many people actually like what feels like the comfort of somebody else being in charge, which just seems a bit weird. But there we go. That's
Mhm.
why only I think it's only 4% of the population own businesses. It is quite
Yeah, I think that's something to do with the schooling side of things, though,
yes,
Chris. I don't remember anybody really saying to me at school that that was even an option. It
no,
never even crossed my mind as something that was doable or something I should consider. It was only later in life it really came up.
yes, yeah,
So I
no,
do wonder if I'd known, would I have still gone down that route of being employed, or would I have started something earlier?
yeah, I mean, I think standard education is designed to create great employees. It's what it's there. A big part of that is can you work well for somebody else? So it's not really designed for creating entrepreneurial people. I think it's getting better now. In all honesty, I think my daughters have been through education now, and it is a little bit more, but it's still, I think, a long way to go. Um,
Mm.
but looking back then over these last 10 years, what are some of the biggest issues and challenges that you've had to overcome?
Oh, um, I think maybe one of the biggest things is I've probably had you get these targets in your head that you want to hit. I mean, I'm really competitive. I'm a little bit better now than I used to be because it used to annoy the hell out of my friends. I could never let anybody win at anything. It was like you got to, if you want to beat me, you got to earn it. And you get these targets in your head, and you go in and you're measuring yourself against other people and stuff. Because we were in a franchise, and I think the big thing that it's taken me too long to learn is right. It's all very well and good. You've hit that number and you've hit the revenue number. But have you taken out of it what you want and what you deserve for that effort? And it's
Yeah,
like because you're so focused on growth, and then you're investing the funds that you're generating into that growth. I think it's maybe just being able to stop a little bit and actually think about what you deserve out of it. And you know, it's only a relatively recent thing that I've had put to me. It's like, why don't? Because like I was thinking, at what point does it become that you're rolling in all this extra money? And the reality is, someone put it to me that there's multi-million, hundreds of million pound businesses that aren't making a profit. The directors and stuff are very well paid still, but they're not making a profit because they're investing a lot of that money
yes,
into. And it's just making sure that you account for it on your expenses, what you want out of it, and then
100%.
what's left goes into the growth kind of thing. Because we've always done that. It's just always trying to double the business and keep
Yeah,
moving forward. And you'll have like a couple of years where you plateau maybe, and you've
yes,
got to break through that ceiling. And I think it's just that. That's probably been the biggest learning curve. I think in terms of difficulties, I'm a really good problem solver. So I quite like to, I'm a big believer that Rome wasn't built in a day. And I think a lot of people fail because they don't want to take small actions to fix problems. Like they'll want something that's a finished product and they're not in a position where they're going to be able to create that finished product with their budget or current level of knowledge.
yeah,
And they never complete the task. Whereas I've always been of the mind that I want this, that'd be great for whatever restrictions I'm currently dealing with. I'm not going to get to that. But what I can do is I can improve it to this. And
yeah,
then I'll just keep improving stuff, lots of little areas of improvements over time, and that builds up to be a massive difference in the business over a 10-year period. Like it's unrecognizable now
Yes.
in terms of tech and in terms of sophistication, team size from where I started. And I don't really think there's any big things. I think it's just an accumulation of lots of little victories, really.
Yeah.
But politics is the biggest thing. I'm not a politician. I don't like that. So yeah, being involved in politics with other people's agendas is
Yeah.
yeah, difficult sometimes.
I think you said earlier also, this idea of it's really important we know what we want from a business. It something we do with business owners a lot, and very few do this. But we call it alignment, and it's basically aligning the business goals to the personal goals of its owners. Because
Mm.
an owner managed business is there to give the owners the lifestyle they choose to have. That's its purpose. It might do some other great things, employ great people, serve the community. All of those things are great, but ultimately, most people start businesses because they want what they want from it, but don't create the level of clarity and a plan to deliver that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
My accountant said it to me. I remember when we first sat down years ago. He said you'd be surprised how many directors of companies are paid less than most of their employees, and they're
yeah,
not taking as much as he says it's really, really common that because you're building the business and you're so invested in building the structure, you're sort
yep,
of sacrificing yourself. It's silly, really, but I mean, it's definitely a big challenge. And it's an easy trap to fall into because I remember saying to
yes,
him at the time, that won't be me. I guarantee you that won't be me. But there's been times when absolutely it's been me, and I'm taking hits on what I'm taking on to support members of the
yeah.
team. So yeah.
I, I think if it's planned, then if it's planned, i.e., let's say the first 5 years, I'm going to
Mm.
put everything back in. I'll live on whatever my choice. That's fine. But then the next 5 years is going to be this or whatever it is. It's just being clear what that is because then it makes decision making far easier. Because does that take me closer to that or further away? But it's one of those things. So you mentioned obviously a couple of things you learned already. Whether it's from the challenges or the successes, what are your biggest learnings about growing an effective business?
Um, in terms of the biggest learnings, I think people's massive.
Yep.
Um, I think having a real understanding of the kind of culture that you're running and the kind of people that you want in your business. I think it's an interesting thing because over the years we've had, in terms of experience, be personality profiles and types of people. You can have people that come in that are quite experienced and you would think will get off the ground well, but they bring in a bad attitude. They bring in bad habits from other companies, and they're just not used to or willing to step up to the higher levels of
Yeah.
performance and standards that you've got. Whereas if you find someone that's got the right mental capacity and the right sort of personality and culture fit, they're trainable and
Yeah.
they don't come in with the bad habits. They learn how to do things
100%.
to the standards you expect. So I think that's probably a big learning. I mean,
Great.
when we rejigged the business to make it more scalable and sort of be a hybridized setup in terms of agency, some employed and some self-employed,
Right.
off the back of some learnings in as we left the previous franchise. And I was part of me was very attached to experience um, and not deviating from that. But like we've had people come in that had some experience or maybe less experience and they've trained incredibly well and been very good and been brilliant for the clients. And you don't obviously, if they've not got loads of experience off the bat, there's a certain amount of training before you let them loose into the
Yes.
wild kind of thing.
Yep.
You've got to make sure the client's protected. But they're brilliant. I mean, they're absolutely
Yep.
fantastic. They care about the client, they work, they graft their backside off. And that's how I started. So I
Brilliant.
think that's a massive learning point. People. Um, Systems is a big thing as well.
Yep.
I think I think a lot of people I've seen over the years that again have started and maybe failed have been reluctant to like for me to start producing better systems. Whenever I work with anything, it's the first time I do it. That should be the hardest it's ever going to be for me because
Yep.
I want if there's a way I can make it better, I'll make it better.
Brilliant.
And yeah, it's even the software system we've got at the minute. We shopped around quite a lot when we left the franchise we were with, And we decided to stick with the one that they had. There was like another version of it we could use. And unfortunately, it was a big company on the market had at the time, and they decided to shut it all down, impacted loads of agents, hundreds, if not thousands of
Oh
agents.
wow,
So then we went and did some proper shopping like that. Let's be really picky this time. And the company that we've got are fantastic. Like if there's something in there that we think makes our life easier or it could operate a little bit better, they're so engaged with conversation and they will sort it quite quickly. Like
brilliant,
it's amazing. It's a breath of fresh air.
brilliant.
And because you've got that kind of attitude with the suppliers you're using and within the business, it's always getting better. Like
Yeah.
every week, every month, you're a little bit better than you were. So I'd say that's massive as well.
Brilliant. Brilliant. No, that makes a lot of sense. I think going back to your attitude point, I mean, it's something that we recommend to people is attitude over experience.
Mm.
It's now obviously either a base level of experience or a base level of trainable experience is important. I mean, it's not that you say you don't just let anybody out,
Yeah, yeah.
but if you've got a choice, we'd always go with somebody with great attitude over great experience because yeah, you can't train attitude really, but you can train experience. No, it makes absolute sense. And look, I think you're aware we're a business coaching organisation. I'm just keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
I mean, it's an interesting question, actually. I don't I don't think I've got one individual that really stands out. I think it's been an accumulative thing over the
Yes,
years. I mean, one of the biggest influences have been as a man have been my dad and my grandparents. I've been very lucky to have strong men that have got really good moral compasses. So they've always sort of guided the decisions I make.
brilliant.
Um, so that's definitely been the best influence on me. But I think in terms of coaches. I had one coach, Diane Griffin at Keller Williams. She taught me one of the best lessons. I remember having a conversation with her, and I'm very focused and sort of tunnel vision on right. This is what I'm doing, and this is this, and my wife was giving me a bit of friction on it at the time. She's like, "Look, you spending too much time working, your work life balance is not right, and this, that, and the other, and not really seeing what I'm seeing." And I'm like, look, I know this is the right call, 100%. This is what's happening. If it needs to be like this, and it needs to be like this until we get to where we need to be and stuff. And I remember having a conversation with Diane, a very successful, impressive woman in her own right in many ways. Got a lot of respect for her, and I said, look, what can I say to Rachel to get her to sort of understand and get on the same page as me? And she's like, well, you don't need to. She says, have you actually thought about listening to what she's saying to you and asking what she needs from you rather than you expecting her to give you what you need? And I genuinely not even considered that side of it. I was surprised that she said it to me, given that she was sort of, influencing the growth of my business and stuff at the time. And she said, just sit down with your wife and ask her what she needs to see from you to be okay.
Brilliant.
And all she wanted from me was to not work past 6 o'clock on a Friday
Brilliant.
and give her one. At the time, it was just half a day on a weekend, and that was it. That's all she wanted from me, and it was like a bit of a light bulb moment
Brilliant.
that sometimes you need to listen to what people are saying to you and let
Yes.
in what they want and go with that first rather than what you want to move forward. So that was massive. That was a big lesson.
Yeah, that reminds me. I remember working with a client, and he was very entrepreneurial, probably quite similar to you in some ways. And he wanted to grow fast, but his wife was very stability oriented,
Mm,
and we did a similar exercise, and she just said, "Look, I just want to know." I mean, I think a phrase was literally, "I just want to know I've got a roof over my head."
mm,
So the first goal was to buy the house outright, and once the
yeah.
house is outright, it was just like we'll get the house, we'll get it done, that we're safe. Now we can go and play, and
Mm.
and because it was playing for him, whereas for her it was, that constant fear of what it might mean if the business struggled. So no, I really get that. It's fantastic, and whether it's from obviously strong role models from your family or the coach you mentioned, do you have any favourite quotes or sayings about business life success in general?
I mean, I read there's a book that really stood out to me. Grit by, I think it's Angela Duckworth, I believe, if I remember rightly. I mean, there's a few books over the years that stood out. That one really stood out because I've always been of the mind that I've kind of jokingly said to myself, look, I can carry a lot of weight. I'm a bit of a pack horse, so I'll take weight on my shoulders to sort of help those around me a bit. But I don't think this quote's correctly attributed to Winston Churchill because I've sort of, it might have originated elsewhere, but I love the quote. And it was that success is not final and failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue which matters. And obviously, it makes sense that he would have said it given what was going on at the time around the
Yes,
world and stuff. But I think that that's a massive thing for me because I think well, if you win at something, great, but you keep building. If you lose, you get back up and you learn
yes,
from it. Keep trying. Like when it comes to anything, sport particularly, I've always been of the mindset that I want to play someone that's better than me, and I don't enjoy getting beat, but I quite like it in a way, in a weird
yeah,
way, because it's an opportunity to improve.
yeah,
Funnily enough, we've been playing squash again. We haven't played for like 4 or 5 years. And there's one of the lads, he grew up sort of tennis and squash with his dad, and he's clearly better than the rest of us. Physically, not much of a difference, but his technique and stuff's better.
yes,
And the first 3 sessions, like, couldn't get near him, could win a point, but couldn't beat him in a game. I remember saying to him, like, give me a few weeks and I'll beat you. And I'm like, it's only a matter of time. And last
brilliant.
week we played and I beat him every single game we played. And I love that because but then just because you beat him once, it doesn't mean like next week he could absolutely tank me. So it's just once you got to that level,
Yeah,
you keep going, keep building, don't you? So yeah, I think it's a great saying, great quote.
yeah, love it, absolutely love it. He also said something that's, I think, as you say, I think this one as well is may or may not be attributable to him, but it definitely said it was. If you find yourself going through hell, just keep going, which I thought
Mm.
was quite an
Yeah,
interesting one, isn't it? Because it's like how often we find people that actually sit in hell and that's where they reside, and it's a horrible place to be.
I think in the world these days, like mental health is such a big thing,
Yes,
and it impacts so many people. I think it's a great message to sort of cling on to that time's a big thing, and you're not going to go through that difficult period forever. But it's that battle to just
yeah.
one step at a time, just keep working through it, and there will be better times around the corner, and just to hold on to that. It's not just about business. I think it's just a good message in life generally.
No, I agree. I really agree. I think it's just keep going because it will get better as long as we take some form of action. Things, if we take action, things change. Not
Yeah,
always for the better, but they will change. If we continue to take action, things will continue to change, and eventually we'll find the right way that works out into success. Um,
that's it. Most
and
stuff's not by luck, is it? It's
no,
consistent effort over a period of time.
it is. It's just it is keeping going. I think it's yeah, I mean, interesting. You mentioned earlier. I think you're good, being a good problem solver, and what I remember the ex-CEO of Action Coach saying to me many years ago. He said, Chris, the job of a business owner is to solve problems,
Mm.
and he said, basically, if you don't like problems, probably business isn't the right thing for you, which was quite interesting. And but what I've come to believe since then is that. Um, therefore is to embrace problems. And in fact, problems are typically a feature of growth. So if we don't have any problems, we're probably not growing as fast as we could do if we chose to. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd agree with that 100%. It's I think the day you look at things and you're thinking there's nothing I could do to make this better, that's the day that you probably sell that business, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's bang on. I think you're absolutely right. It's just like if we can't make it better or we don't want to make it better, then we're probably done. Um,
Yeah, I
we
think so. I mean, whether you'd still have a shareholding and it's just purely, you earn the benefit of what you built and that's it, you sort of take a step back. But yeah, I think if I couldn't do anything to improve it, I'd be bored stiff. You'd be looking for another project.
Well, funny enough, it comes out. The next thing I was going to ask you about is so our definition of Action Coach of a true business
Mm.
is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works
Mm.
without its owner or
Mhm.
owners. And I wondered what your thoughts are on that.
No, I agree. I agree with it. I think there's because ultimately, if you're required to still be in it day to day, then it's not really a fully functional business, is it? And you're still self-employed to a degree rather than a business
Yeah.
owner. Um, I think there's a difference between doing something for the love of it and because you're engaged in it and doing it because you have to.
Yes.
It's like improving a business and loving that process. Like me and my ops manager talk about it quite a lot because when we were younger we used to play a game called Football Manager quite a lot,
Okay.
uh,
Yeah.
and it's surprising how much of business is similar to that kind of stuff. It's like so I feel like it was an early education in my teenage years because it's just learning how to create loads of different systems and like building a scouting network, for example, so that you had
Yeah.
a ready-made pool of talent coming in on the game, and you didn't have if you didn't have money to go spend millions like Man City or whatever, you went and did that, and went for the best scouts and the best youth system, and understanding like ticket prices and how that impacts your revenue streams and stuff. It's silly little things like that, but it's that difference. Ideally, you want something where you can put it down if you need to, but then you want to be engaged. It's like again, you want to be playing it like it's a game. It's enjoyable. You do it for the fun because you
Yes.
need to.
Yeah, I think playing it. I think playing it as a game is a great thing. And I often
Mm,
say that to people. Look, let's just this is just a game, really.
mm,
It's serious at certain points, but we've got to treat it like a game. I think the key thing about it is, and what we find, and we found quite a lot is if you really love it, if you really love some or all of what you do, then why would you want to stop? I get that completely.
mm.
It's having firstly the choice
Yeah.
because I might enjoy it now, but I'm not enjoying. In 6 months' time, if I'm not enjoying it, if we haven't done the right things, we've still got another 2 or 3 years to go to not have to do it. But I think the challenge we often have is we misplace acceptance for enjoyment. In other
Yeah.
words, if that makes sense, it's like, oh no, I quite enjoy it. Well, okay, do you mean enjoy it, or just you feel you're the
Yeah.
only person that's doing it? If that makes sense. And it reminds me actually, slightly different note, but I remember our founder Brad doing an event quite a few years ago, and one of the principles we teach people is anything if you start to value your time as the person driving the business growth, not just the job but the growth, technic or anyone in your organization values an hour of their time, the principle is anything you could pay somebody a lower rate to do something you're currently doing to free yourself
Yeah.
up is profitable. It's not just enjoyable, it's profitable. And Brad, I remember him saying, he said, yeah, I've not cut my own grass for the last 10 years,
Mm,
as an example. And the guy stood up, and the guy stood up. He took offence of that, and he stood up and he said, "Brad," he said, "I like cutting my own grass." And Brad, and he didn't mean to be disrespectful, but it was immediate reaction. He said, "Well, that's because you haven't got a boat."
mm.
And it was like, yeah,
Yeah.
what would
Interesting.
you prefer to do than that thing? It's be acceptance and putting up with it is fine, but what if you had other choices? And I think again, that's where that plan of our life, and the rewards we're going to get from our business is so key. So we make sure we validate the stuff we do like, because I do and have worked with people still who still do part of what they do and they love that bit, whether it's the selling, the delivering, the consulting, taking clients out for lunches and enjoying that process. That's absolutely fine. But anything we really don't enjoy or just tolerate, I think is great. It's actually profitable for the business because somebody else will love it better than us.
It's funny you say actually, because it's we've had this conversation internally a few times about if and when at what point I stop dealing with my own clients, and it's because it's easy enough to just get someone to do it and me not do it anymore. Because I mean, frankly, I don't need. We're in a position where I don't necessarily need to deal with clients
Yes.
directly. I again, I do enjoy it because people find it interesting when I say this. You hear a lot of people in property say, "Oh, I love property. I absolutely love property." I don't. I never have done. It's
Um,
bricks and mortar. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some properties we go to are absolutely beautiful. There's one we've got at the minute. It's gorgeous. It's like something out of a fairy tale. But it's not the property that ever attracted me to the job. It's the people, it's the journey they go on.
Brilliant.
Like for someone moving home, it's or they're going through a divorce, or it's their, first child they're upsizing, or
Brilliant.
uh, someone's passed away. It's a massive, massive life event for people. And I think it's a privilege to be involved in that and to be so trusted by
Yeah.
that client, because then that client becomes a client for life then as well. And
Yep.
it's they'll use you numerous times over the years. And I love that. I love the appreciation that you get for doing a good job and to be able to sort of put an arm around them. Someone put on a review recently that it was like having a guardian angel, and like that gives
Brilliant.
me a lot of satisfaction to have that impact on that
Yes.
family. And I love doing that. And I'm not sure at what point. I'm sure they'll get to a point where it'll be like, right, I think, I'm ready to sort of wrap it up and stuff. But for now, that's still something that does keep me quite engaged, which
Yes.
is I wonder what point that will change, actually, because we have had the conversation a few times about it. So it's interesting you said that.
I think, yeah, and I think I mean, if I was to ask this question to think, not to answer now, but if you could do that in a slightly more remote way, i.e., if
Mm.
you read or you got all the testimonials, or the ability to take a step back and say, I created this, so every positive comment we get about my business is about what I've created,
It's a
not
good
about
point.
what I do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I've not thought about it that way before either. Yeah, it's interesting that you've said that.
It's because I think one of the things owners and founders should do is embed their culture, their beliefs and values in the business, and then
Mm,
it's the business is doing it. Then almost, I'm not saying our work is done, but it's almost like
mm,
your personality, your beliefs, that what's important to you. Once that is fully embedded in the business, you don't need to be there to make sure that is how your clients, future clients, are operating. I think, and I think it's not an overnight quick fix, but it can be delivered over time. And I think the last job, I really do believe the last job of an owner of a business should maintain until the right point is the culture of the business. If
mm.
if we champion the culture, then every one of our clients is going to be served in a similar way that we would.
Yeah, I think that's the big. I mean, what you were saying earlier about learning curves as well. I think that's one of the big things because maybe guilty of being a bit of a control freak sometimes. A lot less so these days. Because I think once you get to a certain point, and you're self-employed and you're growing and you need to bring someone in, you're scared to do it because you're thinking they're not going to do it the way I do it to the standards I do it. But I mean, I'm looking at a picture of Joe Lysite on the wall at the minute, and she came in with me as a PA when I was about ready to have a mental breakdown. Frankly, I had far too much work to stay on top of, and I was unbelievably overworked at that point.
Yeah,
And it was this idea that, oh well, if I'm giving her stuff to do and is she going to do it the way I want and stuff. And the reality of it is like as she's brilliant at so many different areas of the job. And there's areas of what we do where she's more talented than I am. She's
yep,
naturally just more gifted. I'd say, like, when it comes to viewings, for example, she connects with buyers in a way that I don't. She's much
yes,
more personal. Her personality is a lot more bubbly than me. So it's like having that little bit of faith in someone else to take your business forward.
yeah,
And I do look at the reviews that different members of the team get, and you're proud of them and what they're
brilliant.
doing, and it makes you proud to sort of have a business that is doing things the right way. So I do agree with what you're saying.
Brilliant.
It's yeah, it's I'm looking at it and thinking it's a different type of pride for when you do it directly for your client
Yep.
compared to someone representing those standards. But yeah, it is something I could maybe make my peace with, just to
Yes.
be proud of what I've built and what the team are delivering on my behalf, really. Yeah, it's
It's
a good
it's
point.
it's an interesting concept. I think it is a freeing concept because it does free us from the feeling of a need to be there day to day, and it's quite interesting because that point of leverage. So one thing I say I often find, and I think you're well past this, but you'll have probably experienced this. Is I always say to people, you can get to a certain level of success with a few good people in sheer blood and guts. Just all
Mm.
work really, really hard, and we can have a level of success. It can be quite significant, depending on how many key people are in a business. The challenge is we will always find a point of limit, and that's typically how much time our time.
Yeah.
if we've got a few good people putting everything in, once everything is truly in, we cannot grow another percent because there's if it's based on our time. Now, we're trained and taught from a very early age that it's all about how hard we work. Work hard, you'll do right. Correct, 100% correct. But in terms of business and leverage and growth, that limits the size of the business until we can start to work on working through other people. Our job is to lead, to rapidly maintain the culture, to absolutely say this is how we do it here, but only when we're able to let go of it not being about me anymore. It's about
Yeah.
the team I've got. There's a lady called Jennifer Byrne who I heard speak, and she's ex it's a few years ago, but she was ex CTO at Microsoft. So
Mm.
very experienced, very capable lady. And she spoke in Leeds a couple of years ago, and she was being interviewed, and it was a room full of business owners, and and I remember looking around and seeing everyone sort of. She certainly messed with everyone's head because she said in the US when they're recruiting C-suite executives, they actively test them on their ability not to do things.
Mm.
And it's like everyone's going, no, sorry, but and her point was when you get to this level, that level, it's about how we can work through others, not what we do ourselves, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. It's an
It-
interesting, it's a really interesting point in terms of business growth and moving forward, I think. Because I look at the people I've got in the team, I've got absolute faith in every single one of them.
Brilliant.
And it is great because it does give you a lot of flexibility. Like when you're able to go and do stuff, like for example, I remember growing up. I mean, my dad's brilliant. Can't praise him enough as a father. He's a wonderful bloke. But
Brilliant.
with his job and stuff, he couldn't be there for football games and rugby games and stuff like that. And it's nice that when my daughter's got her parents' evening coming up in a few days, and Rachel said, "Oh, I can't get to that. Can you do that?" And it's nice to be in a position where, yeah, I can. I didn't even have to think about it. I can definitely go to it.
Yep.
The team, any one of the team, can step in and deal with something that if I'm already scheduled for that, there's a good chance they can step in and deal with it. Or it can be rearranged because your
Great.
family first sort of thing. So yeah, it's that faith in your team and your systems is great. Yeah, it is good.
Brilliant. No, it's great to hear. It's a work in progress. I think it's
Always.
and as I said, it's like if we're really open and honest about what we love and really good at, it's not a requirement that we have to the
Mm.
business has to work without us, but it is a choice that often we avoid because of the beliefs we have about us needing to be there, if that makes sense. And so it's fascinating. So we've talked a bit about learning, Luke. What would you say you've learned about yourself throughout your journey so far?
Oh God. I talk too much. That's definitely one of my weaknesses. I have to keep my mouth shut sometimes and use this a little bit more. Um, I think one of the learnings is questions are the answer. I think is it Alan Pease?
Alan Pease, yes.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me. If, for example, if you're valuing a property and all the evidence is in front of you and all the evidence suggests a certain number, and the seller's got a different higher number in their head, like I know that it's not going to sell for that. I mean, I say I know. The reality is, I haven't got a crystal ball. But there's a
With your
very
experience,
it's
100% get it. Yeah.
it's not. I think if you tell the client that, and you can show them all the evidence as much as you want.
Yes.
If you tell them it's your opinion, and then a different agent comes down the road and they just use a different opinion with no evidence. It's your opinion v theirs. They don't like your opinion, so they're going to go with the other agent. I
Yeah.
think the big win is to ask the individual questions and get them to answer because there's only one answer. If
Yes.
it's there, it's correct information, it's fact, it's in front of you. Getting them to self understand and self realize, self educate
Yep.
so much more efficient
Yeah.
than trying to tell somebody something.
Yep.
So I think it's the same with training as well. Getting someone to learn it themselves and just it's a bit of a difficult thing to sort of master. And I'm not certainly not saying I've mastered it by any stretch of the imagination, but as a concept, it was probably the biggest learning point.
Brilliant.
Uh,
Love it.
Great with your kids as well, rather than telling them necessarily, get
100%.
self learn. Mm.
It's interesting how much. Funny enough, I've trained with Alan Pease a few years back. He came
Oh
over and
wow.
we did some work with him. He's a total nutcase. I don't know if you. Uh,
No,
he's a
didn't know
proper nutcase. He shared this story. I don't know if I should share it on air, but so he said he had a health scare. This is probably going back, let's say 6 or 7 years, certainly pre-COVID. But he said 6 or 7 years before that he had a health scare, very, very quite a serious scare, and it was quite an aggressive form of cancer, unfortunately. And he basically said, "Well, the doctor said you've got, I think it's a 1 in 3 chance of surviving like 4 years or something." And he
that.
said, "Well, what? Well, okay. Well, I'll go with the 1 in 3. So how do I become the 1 in 3?" Oh, well, it's
Mm.
not. It's not. And it's not. That isn't
Doesn't
how it
work.
works. So he said, so I found another doctor, and then he didn't like what he said, so he found another doctor, and he found a doctor that's, 8 years on, he's still here. And this was going back 10 years, and he said he got so determined. I think this is a good learning for determination and goal setting. He said I got so determined that I was going to choose my own future that he's had his expiry date tattooed on his backside.
That's
So,
brilliant.
so,
All right.
yeah, he is a proper nutcase. But no, one thing, and it's been great for me in terms of doing what I do. Sales and coaching are quite similar, and the questions and the answers are the same. So helping coaching for me is helping people find their way forward, not telling them what they should do. Because I've never met an entrepreneurial person. I'm pretty confident you'd be one of them that likes to be told what to do for anything more than about a millisecond. So it's like it's inappropriate because it's like, you're an expert in your business. I may have business expertise, but it's about that working together and asking you questions
Yeah.
that's going to help you find your way forward, not telling you should be doing A or B or X or Y.
I think the value in coaching is massive, like because it's underestimated, really. I mean, you look at all the highest performing people in the
Yeah.
world; they've all generally got coaches, and I think the minute a lot of micromanagers and people that aren't necessarily good bosses seem to think that they're the smartest person in the room all the time, and they're condescending to those around them,
Yes.
and a complete lack of respect. And you tend to find they're the worst ones, they're the least performing, least
Yes.
respected. It's like, get over yourself, for God's sake. Like there'll be people in that room that are far more
Yeah.
effective and far more capable than you are in so many different areas. Just accept it and embrace it and use the fact that use their knowledge and their ability to your own benefit rather than thinking you're the big I am all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely, couldn't agree more. It's like I think it's this idea of always being inquisitive, always believing there's
Yeah.
another way of doing things. Always, how does that work? And no, if the day anybody feels that they know everything they need to know, then they're probably toast. They should really be probably stepping back. In fact, I spoke to I remember interviewing a guy that he does a number of things, but one is he finds investors for fast growing businesses. That's a big part of what they do. And I remember him saying when I interviewed him, he said, "Look, if a CEO at any point a CEO says they're not interested in learning anymore, they reject some form of learning, then their time is done."
Mm.
And it's quite an obvious thing to do because it's like there's always something new to learn, and the world's changing. I mean, that's the point, isn't it? The world is changing underneath us, so we have to be ready for change. Um, so speaking of which, change in the future. What does the future look like for you guys, Luke? And what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
I think I think the environment is changing a lot with AI. I think there's
Yep,
a lot to I think you'll either use it to your advantage or you'll get left behind and you'll suffer due to the consequences. I mean,
yep,
I'm already seeing it. We're seeing it with people out in the field, people selling their homes and having to change jobs because AI's unfortunately replaced some
yes,
of the some of the people that are needed in that business. But I think having an understanding that certain things people are still massive assets to people and being able to find that balance.
yep,
Um, I mean, our plans are we're in a really good spot. We're quite happy. We're ahead of our growth projections and plans.
great.
I think we could accelerate quicker than we do. I think me and Dan are very aware that there are maybe limitations to ourselves and mindset that a little bit that needs breaking down because of who we are and how we grow up and stuff. That needs to be sorted. But understanding the limits of an office, how many agents you can realistically support, and what your maximum profits are for that sort of and revenue for that sort of office before you expand. But our plans are to grow across Yorkshire. At some point, I'm sure we'll step out of that. We're not quite sure whether to franchise at the moment, which would be quicker,
Yeah.
or to just sort of grow it internally through resources between us and the team. So we're not quite
Yes.
sure about that, but I think just having an understanding of where you're going is a massive thing, and
Yeah.
having a target rather than just blindly going for
Yep.
it and seeing where you end up. I think having targets is quite important. So that's a big part of our thing. AI has been fantastic, but I think at the same time with the AI, it's not like some parts of it are absolutely unbelievable and
Yes.
deliver incredible results, and other parts of it you maybe it's not quite ready yet. So not just
Yeah.
sort of throwing it in. Like we used to have a call answering service as an overflow, and I wouldn't say it was particularly great. It was for what it was quite expensive. They couldn't really book in appointments and this, that, and the other. They were just taking messages. And we worked out we could set up the AI. It could send a link where someone can book in straight into the diary.
Yeah.
Um, it still takes messages, puts them in, and acts as like a call screen, but it's a lot less money. And now we've got a new upgraded version that's sort of embedded in all the systems where it can have a conversation about a buyer, about one of our properties. It can
Yeah.
highlight and send them a message with different ones that fit their criteria and stuff. And it's just that progression. So I think but then understanding what it can and can't do, like it's
Yeah.
not always great at dialects and emails. So sending a form out just to clarify that and then updating the system automatically is a big
Brilliant.
thing. Little things like that. I think there's
Brilliant.
a lot of AI in the future, but I'm not
Yes.
sure whether it's good or bad at the moment. We'll see if Terminator becomes a reality.
Yeah, yes, there's a whole bunch of stuff out there on that, isn't there? But no, I think I personally believe for a significant period of time, the human element is going to be really important to people.
Oh,
That
always.
like viewings and just as you said, your business is based on giving that highest level of looking after these people, looking after the people because it's such an important decision. And there's enough people will get that. Some will just go, no, just give me a machine based
Mm.
delivery service, and that's fine. But it's a bit like coaching. It's like somebody might want the idea they can type into Chat GPT and get five different answers, and that's fine. I get that, but ultimately, people often want to work with a human and a human that's had the experience. One thing AI will never have, can't have it, can mimic, but can't have is the experience, the feelings of, and you operate in a feeling based situation. I do too in many ways, and I think that's the key thing. I think we had, I don't know if you're familiar with a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk. You're sort of, I know him or you don't, but Gary V. So he's got like 50 million followers. He's an American entrepreneur. So he was our keynote speaker last year on at our conference, and he was saying, he said, one not far in the future, one of the people will get paid to go for walks with people because we
Mm.
still want that human element. And I think
Yeah.
the successful businesses embed that human element into them will be successful alongside AI, if that makes sense. And
Oh,
it's
massively. I mean, when you look at the people, I've always had the understanding that talented people are an asset to you, but it's got to be two-way. I think some companies maybe take that for granted. That
yes,
like I look at some legal firms over the years, and the amount of turnover they have for overloading their team,
yeah,
and the teach. I look at education, and I mean that's heading for a fall if they don't sort it out because
yeah,
people are not happy in that industry anymore.
such a
I
hard
hear
job.
so much from teachers that don't want to be in the industry anymore. I genuinely wonder why anybody goes. I mean, you do it for the kids, but even then, there's too much red tape and bureaucracy in it. It's like I look at my team and everyone that's in that business, they're an asset for me if I look after them and they're trained enough and they can look after the clients to the standards we represent.
Yep,
But at the same time, it's a people business, so you want them to be happy and be, wealthy and be earning the money they want and living the lifestyle they want and getting the recognition and sort of appreciation of the clients. Because if they're doing that with you, they're not going to necessarily want to go somewhere
yeah.
else. Um, some people you never be able to, it's always
No,
going to, some people you might lose, but I think ideally you want to make it so it's synergistic, isn't
yeah.
it? everybody's happy, the client's happy, you're happy, your team members happy. It's
Absolutely. Absolutely. So final question, what would be the best advice you'd give an 18-year-old you if you go back in time and do that, Luke?
oh God. It depends whether it's professional or personal.
Whatever works.
I think be open-minded and don't set limits for yourself. I think
Right.
I think when we're young, we maybe set invisible boundaries for ourselves
Yep.
without even realizing we're doing it over what
Yep.
you think is possible. I think if you open your mind a little bit, it's definitely been a big learning curve for me over the last 10 years. You know, I mean, again, great family and everything else, but I think there's definite boundaries over, mining community and how many people I know. I didn't really know that many people that were self-employed, but then when you start
Yeah.
meeting some of these people that their minds are very open, you see what they've been able to achieve, and they're just normal people. They're not,
Yep.
they're just normal people that have gone about things in a certain way. So I think, yeah, keeping an open mind and not setting limits for yourself and just see how far you can actually push yourself would be a big thing rather than
Love it.
thinking you've got a limit. Let's just see and test those limits. Yeah.
Love it. Sound advice to anybody. Um, Luke, it's been fascinating talking to you. I honestly could keep going all afternoon, but
Likewise.
uh,
Thank you, Chris.
no, thank you. And to anyone that is watching would like to get in touch with you or Rosedale and Jones, what's the best way of doing that?
If you go to the website, www.rosedaleandjones.co.uk, if someone's looking to sell their property, you can book straight into the team's diary,
Brilliant.
and be in touch. If you contact the info at Rosedale and Jones or the office number, if you ask for me specifically, that's fine. Happy to speak to people as well. So, yeah, no problem.
Brilliant. Well, it'd be great to swing by another 6 to 12 months and just see your further thoughts and further developments. But for now, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.